My guest today is filmmaker Guy Trevellyan and his newest short film, Plastic Surgery, and marks his directing debut as something very close to his heart, tackling the issue of plastic pollution and its effect on the planet and our health. Now, since graduating from MetFilm School, Guy's unique style has been shaped by working alongside directors such as Wes Anderson and Michael Sarnoski, as well as Shawn Levy and more as an assistant director. But learning from these creative titans in the industry has given Guy a window into all forms of filmmaking. Now, he founded Nice Guy Pictures in 2024 and aims to raise awareness about social and human issues. His short film, Plastic Surgery, is now BAFTA and BIFA qualified, having been selected to Hollyshorts, Bolton International, as well as Women X Film Festival, amongst others. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Guy Trevellyan and his powerful short film, Plastic Surgery, to the show. Welcome, Guy.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Ward. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Wow, and I have to say it's an honor for me to actually watch your film. And the title of your film caught me by surprise. It's
Yes.
a strong play on words. So, what inspired you to bring awareness to plastic pollution?
Well, Ward, it kind of all started really actually with my sister, who used to work for the Ocean Agency, which is a not-for-profit organization that looks at raising awareness about the global warming effect on marine life and coral reefs around the world. And I worked with them on kind of a short program that we made, and it kind of opened my insight into what was happening and the effects on marine life. And from that kind of experience, I started doing more research about plastic pollution, about how it's affecting our oceans. And then the one thing that kind of popped was how it's starting to show up in our bodies, and that the increasing amount of studies and research behind plastic consumption and how we consume it through different through the air, through the water, through how we eat. So that was kind of the start of the idea really for me, and then I kind of went from there and wrote the script during COVID. So it was quite an interesting interesting write.
You know, it's been reported that we ingest the equivalent of one credit card of plastic per week. And your film
Yes.
shows that not only is plastics in our environment, not only is it a danger to our environment, it's a hidden danger that is not being addressed, not yet on a global level. Uh,
Yeah.
and your film, I believe, is going to make this something that could be a top priority for many nations across the world.
Yeah, I mean it's a horrifying reality. If I'm completely honest, it scared me, and that's why I was so moved to make this short film. And I watched this short by Denis Villeneuve called "The Next Floor," which is an incredible short that I think he wrote after Sicario, which was all about how Mother Nature was struggling to keep up with human consumption. And it kind of followed these people eating endangered species around a table, and the waiting staff were trying to keep up with them. So I really wanted to create this kind of visual metaphor for Mother Nature's struggle to try and save our own toxic creation that we've created ourselves. And so that was what I thought might be an interesting way to look at this topic, because so many people might know about the effects of plastic on the planet and our oceans, but I don't think many people know the real effect that it could have on our health. So that's the kind of where it really, yeah, that is what scared me personally, and I hope plastic surgery really is a kind of warning and call for action, and to make those little changes in our everyday life.
You know, when I watched your film, and from a standpoint cinematically, this was a very ambitious production. You have a
Yeah.
large cast of people. There were special effects makeup, which was stunning. And I
Mm.
think this is the first film I've ever seen that I believe that I could use the term metaphorically cinematic. So
Mhm.
let's start with the casting. How was that achieved? Because the lead actress was Anna Propelwell from The Chronicles of Narnia and recently The Nun too. But what
Mhm.
was it like to not only direct her, but to direct such a large cast of people?
Yeah. So, to be honest, I'll start with Anna first. I mean, Anna, as you've seen, she's an incredible actress, and I watched her in a play, and she was always someone that I wanted to work with. And so we got a casting director on board called Stevie Davies, and we kind of reached out to Anna, and luckily she came back really quickly and said how keen she was about the script and the story, and how and she was ready to go for it. And what happened after that was actually quite an amazing experience, because I was working on a TV series in Bristol, and we had our first call in a trailer at Unit Base, and she told me that she was 6 months pregnant. So that was something that people won't know about the film, is that she was actually pregnant during filming as well. And she told me this and said, would you be willing to incorporate that into the story? Is that an issue for you? Is there something that we could work around this? And she became kind of the muse of the story. And I realized that the whole time I've been trying to go down this character led story, because I wanted the audience to really invest in a character, and she kind of put this in forward of me, and then I rewrote the script around her. So then I rewrote it to be about this doctor who's about to start maternity leave for the first time, and she gets pulled back into this world of chaos before she can escape and have this new life. And it created this amazing layer of vulnerability, and she brought so much experience to this role, and she was so kind of gung ho, ready to go for it, and so she was brilliant, and so collaborative. We had loads of rehearsals before we even started filming, which is a luxury in short films. Um, for us, we were able to visit the location, because it's called the West London Film Studio, which is a brilliant medical studio. So it's a fully built hospital, and we took Anna there, and we walked through the scenes, and I didn't want to block anything too heavy, because there's always room for the creativity on the day, but we wanted to kind of talk through the script, talk through the world, because she's meant to be a professional in this hospital, so she needs to know the environment and feel as if she's not just turning up on the day. So that made things really, really well. And then in terms of directing the number of essays and the rest of the cast, and the background artists, that kind of I think my experience working as an assistant director really helped with that, because I've worked with crowd as well, large numbers of crowd, from films like Indiana Jones, or to Barbie, or to Asteroid City, where we had 200-300 background artists in, and you get probably a window of 5 minutes to direct a huge group of people. So that experience really, really helped me kind of articulate exactly what I wanted the vision to be, and yeah, so it was quite an experience.
I like the fact that you incorporated Anna's pregnancy because now it adds another element and even more power, because you watch the film and you're thinking, okay, we have this issue now, but her pregnancy
Hmm.
shows, what is the next generation going to do?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
there's that added element. So you worked it into the script perfectly. I mean, the whole storyline was completely seamless. Now, the film is graphic in nature, which drives the message home. Now, how
Hmm.
did you manage the special effects makeup? Because you had Rebecca Wheeler, because she
Rebecca
was the
Wheeler, yeah.
prosthetics, the makeup, and the hair designer.
Mhm. So Rebecca is absolutely incredible. We worked on a short film called A Matter of Minutes, which is how I met her, which is a great short from Slick Films, and where she created the prosthetics for someone having an anaphylactic shock attack, and she created these incredible levels to the this kind of this event, and for the character, and that was what I was really wanting for this story, was this build up in levels of prosthetics and build up in nature. And so we worked really closely together, and I wanted to create these kind of, I coined the term plastic patients, which was which was what they were titled. And we just started thinking all the ways in which plastic enters our body. How can we look at certain objects that we interact with every day, and how would they appear as if they were seeping from within our bodies? Almost kind of, we almost creating it to feel and look like a disease, like if you were taking it like The Last of Us, for example, with fungus or with bacteria, virus. It's something that comes from within the body and starts to seep out through the skin and visibly show. So then we started, working together and thinking how we can incorporate this, and we designed them together. And then on the day, I think it was our third day of shooting, we had maybe 13 prosthetics, because we had the throat gag, which we started with, which I always wanted to do, because I had this image in my head of a snake kind of eating its prey, and you see the skin kind of expand and contract. And I just thought that imagery of that, and if you put that into a human throat, and then you realize that it's actually a plastic bottle coming out, how does that make you feel? And immediately I was horrified and smish, and so then we really riffed off all of these different things. So yeah, it was a great collaboration.
I mean, there was one right after the other, and I was kind of wondering, I'm like, how did he pull off the throat gag? Because it was spot on, perfect.
Yeah,
I mean, I absolutely loved it. But when I kept watching, because Anna, playing the doctor, it was just one right after the other. It became overwhelming.
yeah,
And when you watch it, you realize that we have a global epidemic.
yeah,
And for you to put this in a hospital setting, and then all of these people coming into the hospital is just one emergency one right after the other.
yeah,
And even she was like, "Oh my gosh." Then it's almost like it was almost like the pandemic. So it's kind of like now she got it, but eventually what goes in must come out.
yeah,
And you
exactly.
showed this perfectly in this film, and I was just absolutely glued to the screen watching your short film.
Yeah, thank you all. No, yeah, it was it never was started out to be so graphic in nature. Actually, that was never my original intention. It kind of took its own form as things developed, and suddenly all of these prosthetics and the nature of it, I realized that you really had to see it to feel the full weight of it. But it's yeah. I mean, the throat gag was quite fun to do, because I'm a practical filmmaker. I love making practical effects in camera. And with this, it involved two people with a string wire that was underneath the prosthetic bladder, that was underneath the skin, that was attached to our actor. So it involved two of us kind of pulling up. It was a very kind of raw, and that's what made it feel really gritty, I think. So it was all these little tweaks, and yeah, it was a joy to make. And yeah, when you realize that moment that she's actually been infected herself. I mean, when we designed the prosthetic for Anna, that was really important, because originally I had it in the script that she had something protruding from her medical gown, but I realized that it had to be on the arm, and that kind of, when she sees it and runs into the room and makes that decision to save her and try and save herself, and you see a very small glimpse of the full weight of the prosthetics that have grown just from that short space of time. That was amazing to capture on camera.
But what's kind of funny though is
Yeah,
that you throw the audience off. You throw them completely off the mark in the very
yeah,
beginning. Because the
yes,
first patient that comes in, we see the x-ray, and then we're like, it's almost like watching the Instagram memes, and you're like, oh, what is wrong with people? And then,
Yes.
yeah, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I don't want to give it away. And so the first patient comes in, and I'm like, part of you is just like, what is wrong with you? And the other part of you is pervert. But you set
Yeah.
us up in a way that we don't know what's coming because it plays off the title. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, we see the story unfold.
Yeah.
And Guy, it was brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it's leading the audience into kind of a false sense of security at the beginning, where you know, it kind of almost you feel that it's suddenly going to go a comedic route, and then it brings it back to her about to go home, and suddenly then things start to the light bulb switches on when you realize she's pulled back in, and we built this tension with this kind of 360 Steadicam shot, which was one of my dreams to kind of do, because I just saw it so visually in my head how we could build the tension in that moment for the next procedure. It was it was
Yeah,
fantastic.
I mean, now with Anna though,
Hmm.
because all of this going on, how much leeway in the script did you give her?
Hmm. In terms of leeway, we actually worked on the script after I'd found out she was pregnant, and she was like, let's incorporate it and let's have a look at it. And I went away and rewrote the script, and then I kind of sent it to her, and I actually wanted her to give me a lot of feedback from it. I wanted to get her opinion and see what she felt of it, and if it felt right in those particular moments. So, and then we workshopped a lot of the blocking together. And then there were certain scenes that I actually wanted to close off from her. For example, when they go into the final hospital, the final ward, and they see all the plastic patients around the room, and we come back to her towards the end of the film. I didn't want her to see that at all. So she didn't see the set, she didn't see the patient, she didn't see the prosthetics until the first take. So we kind of rolled camera, gave the general blocking of where she comes to, where she needs to look for her eye line. And we'd already talked through the story beats, but she hadn't seen the space at all or anything. So those were some really special moments, which is what we used in the final film, was that first take, because it's never better than that first take when you get that raw reaction. And so, yeah, in terms of leeway wise in the script, we kept it really fluid. Certain things medical wise we had to keep correct, because I wanted it to feel realistic. It had to feel accurate as well as it could be, because it needed to feel like a extremely real world experiencing a very surreal event. And so we kept that back, but allowed her to have freedom within the space as well.
You worked with composer Michael Lewin Barker,
Yeah,
and Michael and I know each other from Instagram, and I know other films that he has scored. He
yeah,
is brilliant. So,
brilliant.
what examples of inspiration did you give him to create
Hmm.
the urgency and the tension in your film?
It's a really good question. I remember our first call actually. I basically just started sending him loads of music ideas that I'd had in my head when I was writing the script, and I always came back to the opening of the film, which is that long shot to the phone. Originally, I actually wanted an orchestra kind of tuning in. And having this kind of tuning effect as we're trying to move towards the phone, building in suspense when we get to it, and then the phone rings. But then we kind of started riffing on the idea of kind of 90s horror kind of style, Halloween, if that makes sense. For especially for the opening and the end title credits, it's kind of very Halloween esque. So I remember sending him the original music for Halloween, and then when it came to the moment of realization for Anna, where when she realizes that she's infected and she runs through into the room, I actually sent him the docking scene from Interstellar, which is one of my favorite pieces of cinema music. Interstellar is, I mean, the soundtrack, I listen to it every other day. But, it's one of my favorites. And the reason why I sent it was because that moment in the story is where Anna is making that incredible decision, because it's necessary for her character to survive, and she has to protect the person that she's about to give birth to. She has to survive, and she chooses that decision to get into that private room at the back. And the music from the docking scene, I think when we did the first edit, we almost put that to it just to see how the pacing felt and everything, because it's that moment in the story where Matthew McConaughey makes that decision, that he has to save them because it's necessary for him to get home, and he has to get back to see his family. So it's these big, powerful character moments, and so we use that as an inspiration for what he wrote for the score in towards the end of the film as well. And yeah, so we really riffed on everything together, and he's just absolutely incredible. And I listened to his score for What We Wished We Could Be as well, which is phenomenal. And he sold the idea immediately to me when he said, we should get a full piece orchestra to do this. And that was always a dream of mine, to have an orchestra perform a score. I never thought it would be on this film, and then I listened to what they did on What We Wished, and I immediately was sold, and I was like, we have to do this. So yeah, it was a great collaboration.
You know, What We Wish We Could Be is one of my favorite short films.
Yeah,
Because it's so surreal, especially as you and I know, when it gets to the music portion of that film, it's just
yeah,
stunning. But I always say that once the music score is added to the film, that's
mhm,
when it breathes, that's when it comes to life. So for
yeah.
you, what was it like to be in the room with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra?
So I remember I mean, it was such an incredible feeling. I'm listening to the music, and I watched it, their live session, because I couldn't make it to Budapest. I know they did on What We Wished, and even watching it over this live session, and hearing it come together is very surreal. Witnessing all these incredible musicians, and then when we finally put the music to the film and started to see it come to life. You're right. It's that it allows it to breathe. It brings it to life, and music for me is a huge part of filmmaking. And I always look at music as one of the first things I do. So whenever when I've written something, I always have music references in the script, because I'm constantly thinking about that. It just helps my mind visualize a certain scene. So and I remember, I think I was listening to a podcast, or if it was a story about how Christopher Nolan got Hans Zimmer involved with Interstellar, and how it was so early on in development, and he gave him 24 hours to come up with the opening theme, but he didn't really tell him anything about the story. He just told him that it was a story about a father and daughter, and that family bond and connection, and he wrote something for his son, and that became the score for Interstellar, because it was so raw and emotional, and so music to me is yeah, absolutely incredible. And it's yeah, something I look at, probably one of the first things I look at.
Yeah, I have so many colleagues that are composers that score films, and I love every single one of their works. And
Yeah,
and when I'm looking at, as I'm writing and you're working on a script, I sit there and for me, because I know so many, and a lot of people too, it's
yeah,
so difficult to go, who do I want to do this? Because there's
yeah,
so many talented people out there. And
so
and I
many.
know it makes it tough on filmmakers,
Yeah,
because the talent level is so high. But I noticed at the end of your film that you give
mhm,
special thanks to Wes Anderson, Andrew Gilman, and Lorenzo Calder Smith at the end. What
yeah.
contributions did they offer to you?
I think in terms of Wes, I mean, the contribution goes far beyond what I learned from him when I was assisting him. When I was his assistant, and then when he brought me on as one of the assistant directors onto Asteroid City, and I learned so much from him as a filmmaker, basically being by his side during the filmmaking process and learning from him in so many ways. And he gave me a lot of words of wisdom before going into shooting this film, my first short. So, and he said, take every frame as it comes, take every shot as it comes, try not to think too far ahead and just be in the moment with that shot. And I think that was a really powerful bit of advice, because you can often get so caught up with thinking, what's the end? What's the end? What's the end? What am I getting to? What am I thinking? Whereas you forget to sit and think and just focus on that shot. You've worked the story, you've done the prep, you know what you need to do, but now is the moment to focus on the direction, the story, the shot in that moment, and enjoy it. And so I think that was some amazing advice he gave me in the lead up to creating plastic surgery and just generally working with him. In terms of Andrew Gilman, I've worked with Andrew Gilman for a long time now with Artemisia Films, back when I started as a production assistant, and he really helped me with the development of the script notes, and just helping me develop that and giving me a lot of confidence going into my first directing debut. Because it's as a debut, you're always thinking, I've always been there with the director and helping make their vision. Now I'm making my own vision, and it comes with another type of level of insecurities and things that start popping up. So he really gave me a lot more confidence to go into it. And then Lorenzo is a work colleague that I've been working with from the MetFilm School, where we talked together, where we learned together, and he's been kind of by my side on general projects that we've done in the past as well. So he helped me with just looking at the story and a lot of support. So I think those are the three people that really gave me a lot of support for the story.
Well, let's talk about the visuals for a moment,
Yeah.
especially the cinematography. You
Hmm.
mentioned you mentioned in the areas of the composing of the music, like Halloween, horror.
Yeah.
And when you look at the cinematography, were there horror films that you pulled from to get that right look? Because with certain films like Halloween, you have that element of there's a there's a darkness, there's the shadowing. Uh,
Yeah.
was there a particular lens that you just decided to use, or the cinematography said no, this is what you want for that look? So what did y'all come up with?
So to be honest, one of my big cinematography references for this film was actually Mother by Darren Aronofsky. And Mother, I mean, I love the film, and it's shot in a very interesting way because it's only from three perspectives, which is all from Jennifer Lawrence's character, where you saw her close up, over the shoulder, and POV. And so it was all from her perspective. But if you look at the story from start to finish, and you look at the production design, you look at the color grading, you look at all these other things, the darkness, it starts off so, the birth of life with this creation of this home, and it's very bright. And over the course of the film, with these characters invading this home that she's created, everything starts to get darker and darker and darker and darker, and the house begins to slowly fall apart. And so you'll notice there's a lot of references we did in the film, with the production design, especially to show that it wasn't just the characters that were becoming infected. It was the space. It was the world that they were living in. So it's in so many subtle details. Not only is it the color grade, but the production design and how the intercom itself became bloodier, dirtier. We started to create this almost Stranger Things infection coming from the intercom, which was this kind of, which we painted onto the walls. We started to kind of erode and burn off some of the hospital protective gowns and sheets, and we started to do darker shades of paint as we went in. There was all these tiny little details that made the film feel gritty and gets darker and darker and darker. So Mother was a real reference for that. And then in terms of story wise, I've already talked about The Next Floor, which was a big inspiration. That in itself is a very dark film, and how it's filmed as well, which is very handheld. So I had a lot of references for when we get into our final chaotic moment to that film. But I really wanted to do something different with plastic surgery, which was look at how the movement of the camera kind of defines the build up and tension. So we start with the kind of static camera, then we add steady movement with our steady cam, and then we build from that movement into handheld. So you go from this kind of steady, secure feeling, and then we add the subtle movement, and then we build the tension with this 360 shot, and then we start to go into our handheld when we reach the A&E ward, which is when everything's starting to unravel. And going handheld for me is brilliant because you get so much freedom. And I talked to Helena, who's our director of photography, absolutely incredible. And we had a lot of discussions early on in prep, saying that because of the limit of time that we had in the space that we were filming, we needed to be lit 360 so that we could jump back and forth and keep in that chaotic feeling, because I wanted the cast, the all the background performers, the crew, almost to be as on edge as the story in that moment. So I think on day 3 we did setups 44 setups in one day, which included all of our prosthetics, and it was a huge day. I think I collapsed at the end of it, but it was such a joy because, again, being lit 360 and being prepped for that meant that we could jump. We could jump onto all these things and get all these bits and pieces, and we started. We even had room on the day to add these extra shots that we never planned for, where we rigged a camera onto the side of a stretcher and did the circular movement of the wheels moving through the hospital and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was. But yeah, Mother was that kind of inspiration, and then we kind of went a bit crazy with it.
The cinematography of this film, there's so many layers because
Mm,
it, when I look at it, like you said, it's gritty. It reminds you of a
mm.
crime drama, but it's really a
Yeah,
crime against humanity if you look at it from the storyline. So it
yeah,
has
yeah.
that look. And I always wondered that when filmmakers are going to film in a hospital setting, I
Hmm.
always wonder with the color palette because
Hmm.
depending on the hospital, it's either going to be gray tone, blue tone,
Yeah,
green tone.
yeah.
And so with your color palette, what color palette did you use for this film?
Well, to be honest, we were trying to create a very warm feeling at the beginning. So we go, which is where we have that office scene where she's into a hospital, her office, and that's a very warm tonally. And you see all the flowers that we put into the room as well. People that are congratulating her on leaving and her starting this next chapter of her life. And so we wanted it to be a very warm palette at the beginning. Originally, the film actually started in the office. And then we changed it in the edit to start in the first surgery. We flipped it because it didn't feel right to start the film completely. We wanted to lead the audience immediately into a surgery, lead them in this false sense of security, and then bring them back into this office space, making them feel like we're going in a completely different direction. So we started off with this warm tone, which then gets darker and darker as the film goes on, and then we wanted to focus on the kind of the real textures of our skin, the red flushes, all these things that pick up reds and magenta in the hospital setting to bring a bit of life into it. But again, we started to trail that back as the film went on. So in the color grade, we started to take almost the color grade down in skin tones, and we took it down in the surrounding sets as well. And then we wanted to end it again being really, really dark. But we also, the color wise, we went all the way down to costume design with Karen, where we wanted specific roles to be identified with color so that not everyone was wearing the exact same thing, but people stood out. So we had Dr. Terra. She has a kind of turquoise, which is one of my favorite colors, a turquoise color, which is accurate to what some hospitals would use for their general scrubs. And then we kept the nursing staff as a kind of dark blue, which would match the NHS. But then we also had light blue for the surgeons, because we didn't really want the film to point to any particular place, even though the characters have British accents. You can't really place where this is in the world, and so that was quite important. We didn't want to, that's why we didn't have tags which said NHS. We didn't have all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it came down to the color palette of what they were wearing, to our color grade of this general darkness that started encroaching onto the film, and starting off with this warm tone. That was kind of where we went with it.
Yeah, because with a hospital setting, you have to be careful not to make it look drab.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also noticed too that, like in American television and you're watching some medical drama show, everybody's always wearing white, but you
Yeah,
don't see that in plastic surgery.
no, no, you
And
don't see.
so
We didn't want the white.
it keeps
Yeah.
that gritty, dark
Hmm.
feeling to it. And it's funny how you said that you were toning down the colorization as the film went on,
Yeah.
because when I go back to think about it, that's when you see it's almost like the blood draining
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
body and the body
Yeah.
starts changing color.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. 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 And
Brilliant guy.
you get these amazing effects when we're in the hospital ward, and we added a lot more green to almost create a sickly feeling, and it's added with the flickering lights, because not only is the production design of the place is degrading, the electrics, the lights are flickering and going, the darkness is going, the greens are coming in to kind of elevate this kind of sickly feeling within them. So it all kind of worked in tandem together.
Well, you are now an official selection at Hollyshorts this year,
Mm.
but you've also debuted at other film festivals. What has been the audience's reaction to the film thus far?
So we've done Hollyshorts is our first screening, so that's the world premiere, and then we did a cast and crew screening, which I always love. I mean, it's one of my favorite things, because that's what working as an assistant director. That's one of my favorite things, is when you finish a film and you've worked so hard creating something, to bring all the crew back together and the cast and watch the final result is quite a magical experience. So we did that in Shoreditch in London at the Richmond Cinema, and we invited. I think we had about 200 people, and it was great. I was so nervous and scared originally, thinking, what are people's reactions going to be? What if people think it's bad? Should I run out the room? Should I get all these feelings? And I got very nervous, because I've never sat in that seat before, where you're watching something. You put your heart into something, and then suddenly other people can have their opinion of it. And but the overall reaction was great, and I had so much love and support from friends and family, and all the cast and crew, and Anna came to the screening as well. And yeah, so it was quite a magical night. Yeah, not one to
Yeah,
forget.
you have no worries that people are going to love this film. The message is powerful. But what would you like for your film Plastic Surgery to accomplish?
I think for me, plastic surgery is this kind of call for action, and it's a warning about the threats of plastic on our body. And I hope the film will kind of jumpstart people's reactions, and will make people think more and research more and look more into the effects that it's having on our body. And I hope it will draw more conversations, discussions. I remember I talked to someone recently, and it was someone asked me the question, where does the responsibility lie? And I thought it's a great question. And for me, it's a dual responsibility. There's a responsibility of the individual, to make conscious decisions and changes if we can, um, and then it's also up to governments, companies, to make changes themselves, because some people don't have the luxury of choice, depending on where you are, what country you're from. There's not always that luxury, and so there's this whole, I just hope it will raise discussions, and maybe there will be someone who watches it and goes, wow, I'm now going to get a water bottle and I'm not going to buy a plastic bottle, or I'm going to change my toothbrush to bamboo, or I'm just the small things. It's quite an amazing thing. I mean, that's for me, that's been a massive impact when I started learning about it, changing the way that I live my everyday life, and how I try to avoid plastic. And even if, I'm a culprit as well, where you sometimes can't even avoid it, and it has changed how I view it. So yeah, it's an interesting, yeah, that's why I hope anyway.
Well, it's definitely going to cause people to take note of not just the environment, but their own health. And we know
Yeah.
that there's plastic everywhere we go. And ladies and gentlemen, Guy Trevellyan's plastic surgery is powerful and again, metaphorically cinematic. You cannot miss its meaning and, more importantly, its message. Now, in 2022, microplastics were discovered in human blood for the very first time. Now, microplastics have been proven to significantly damage cells in the human body, leading to serious health conditions as cancer, lung disease, and birth defects. Plastic, as the film will tell you, is in the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Plastic is in you right now. And we are now living in a world where the real danger to our health is man himself. Nature has never been a danger to us, as nature has been telling us for centuries what we've been doing has been wrong. Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden for disobedience, and God gave them a shovel. Since then, man has slowly sinned against the earth, and now, in 2025, we are paying the price. The short film Plastic Surgery has a message we need to heed to, and hopefully, this message makes it all the way to the Oscars or the BAFTAs to reach the multitudes. Guy, I want to thank you so much for an incredible ambitious short film. All I can say is wow, it's just simply amazing.
Thank you so much, Ward. It's such an honor to be here chatting with you. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, hey, be sure you're sitting in the theater at Hollyshorts this weekend on the 16th to see this incredible film. If you attend other film festivals in which plastic surgery is being shown, make sure you're in the theater to see this film and support it. I believe this film could be going a long way in this award season. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, as well as listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.